Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest on Storm Isha, which is going to be battering most parts of the British Isles through the rest of today. The peak winds will be arriving later on this evening and lasting all the way through to the early hours of Monday morning. We have seen these amber warnings now extended further through parts of England. Really now, the only places that have not got amber warnings are areas around London and East Anglia. That doesn't mean they're not going to see the very strong winds, it's just the likelihood is lower than elsewhere. We'll have a look at the latest from the live radar. As you can see, the heavy rain is now pushing in from the west associated with Storm Isha. We'll have a look at the latest weather warnings, focusing on those amber warnings, which are really widespread, some of the most widespread amber warnings I've ever seen. And then we'll have a look at the latest from the shorter range models, looking at those wind gusts over the next 24 hours from the UKV, Arpege and the Icon. Not only looking at Storm Isha, but there's the risk of another storm system moving through on Tuesday. Now, fortunately, at this stage, it doesn't look like it will be as intense as Isha, but still, we could be looking at another named system and more amber warnings issued as winds are again getting up to around that 70 to 80 mile per hour point in areas. And then we'll finish the video by just keeping up to date with a longer range, looking at the GFS, GM, ECMWF and the ensemble to see what is in store for the rest of January, as it is looking fairly westerly and unsettled and perhaps stormy as we're seeing at the moment through the next week or so. But beyond that, there are signs that we could see that break apart a little bit and we could see a return to drier but colder conditions into early February, but only tentative signs at this stage, and we'll keep you up to date with that in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe. And remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. As said, if we start on the live radar, you can see we've got heavy rain pushing in from the west at the moment. Rain is going to be an issue in areas as we've got heavy rain falling out of the sky, but also a lot of snow melt, especially for areas across Scotland, where we did see significant snow last week. But the main issue with Isha is going to be the extremely large and strong wind field that we're going to be seeing associated with this system. Now, we have got yellow warnings already in force, and those will be continuing throughout the next 24 hours. It's the amber warnings that come in force later this afternoon into the evening is where we're going to see those strongest winds start to pick up from the west. Now, at the moment, as I said, heavy rain moving in, and it will give a soaking for all areas before the strongest winds do arrive later this evening. I've got a bit of snow across Scotland, but mainly it's falling as rain, as we are seeing incredibly mild air associated with this system. So further southwards and eastwards, where it's dry at the moment, temperatures getting up to around that 10 or 12 degree mark, so incredibly mild compared to what we saw only a few days ago. Now, if you put on those temperatures, you can see very mild for southern areas. Look at all those yellows, something we haven't seen in about 2 weeks, where temperatures are getting into the double digits. But it will get swept away by the cold front, which will progress through the rest of today. But we're still looking average to above average over the next week or so, just oscillating between average and above average. If you do put on the wind speeds, again, these are the wind speeds, not the gusts. So these are the sustained winds. You can already see this starting to pick up for western areas, starting to get up towards that 50, 60 mile per hour point. And again, gusts will be 10, 20 miles per hour higher than that. And it will continue to ramp up through this evening. Actually, across parts of Scotland, where we've got very minimal winds at the moment, these areas could actually see these strongest winds later this evening. I definitely did think that a red warning could be issued, but perhaps we're not going to see one now simply because those very strong winds are arriving in a matter of hours. Now, if you go over to the weather warnings, you can see we've got widespread amber warnings. Now, we won't go through the rain warnings because we have gone through those in quite a lot of detail in the last couple of days and they haven't been updated, but we'll go through the amber warnings in detail. As I said, that is the main severe impact from this system. So we can just have a look at the yellow warning briefly. Again, it hasn't been updated since yesterday, but it covers the whole of the British Isles, again from midday today until midday tomorrow, for very strong winds associated with the storm Isha. But it has been pretty much replaced in most areas by an amber warning. Now, we've got this amber warning covering most of northern England, all of Wales, all of southwest England, all of southern and the far southeast of England, just really excluding in and around the London, maybe parts of the South Midlands into East Anglia as well. Comes into force 6 p.m. and lasts until 6 a.m. So I'm recording this around 2 p.m. and it is starting to get gusty outside, but we're not expecting the strongest winds to arrive for another few hours at least. And you can see it has been updated this morning to include a larger area of England and Wales. Parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, Southern Scotland are now covered with a new separate warning with their end time brought forward. So if you do have a look at the further details, again, we're looking at widely 50 to 60 miles per hour, maybe as much as 70 and maybe even 80 miles per hour before the winds do ease through Monday morning. You can see there's medium impact and medium likelihood. There is no chance of any red warning here. We are looking at severe impacts, but not the highest impacts that we have seen with storms in the past. It's the widespread nature of this system which is the incredible part of it, and of course the widespread very strong winds. Of course we have seen storms in the past that have had very big wind fields, but not quite this strong. So it is really fascinating to see how big the wind field is associated with this system, with this widespread up and down amber warnings that we have at the moment. I can't stress that enough. It is highly unusual to see this much amber on a chart. Of course, we've seen it for rain events before, but more locally. We've seen it for named storms, but again, not always the same time and not always up and down the country. We have seen it for snow, but again, not this widespread. Now, if you look at the amber warning further northwards, this comes into force again 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. and again a very strong, perhaps damaging winds associated with storm Isha. You can see winds are likely to be 60 to 70 miles per hour, quite widely, even inland, and could even get up towards the 80 mile per hour towards coasts. As I said, this is why I said there's a possibility of a red warning, because we've got the possibility of a narrow swathe of even stronger winds crossing parts of the warning area, perhaps 70 to 80 miles per hour, and as much as 90 miles per hour across parts of Scotland. So it is going to be touch and go whether we do see that occur, and whether we do see a warning change for that. Perhaps we won't, because it's a very short lead time now, but I'll keep you updated if that does happen. You can see, though, we're at the highest impact, but lower likelihood. So for Scotland, there's more uncertainty whether those impacts will occur, but if those impacts do occur, they'll be of much higher impact than further southward. So even though they're both amber warnings, we could see drastically different actual wind speeds. So we're looking 60, 70 in the south, highly likely though that we're going to see that, maybe as much as 80. Further northwards, it is looking likely to see 60, 70. There's a small chance it could even get higher than that. So we'll have to see what happens through the rest of this evening, but definitely scope for a red warning here. I'm just unsure if it will get issued, because we're a matter of hours away from this system arriving. Now, said, not only do we have warnings issued for Isha that go into Monday, again, we won't look at these because these I'll just carry on from the warnings today. But into Tuesday and Wednesday, we've got widespread warnings issued as well. Now, these have been updated, and the likelihood of impacts has been increased, with wind speeds increased slightly. So you can see already this system is being slightly upgraded. And again, I think Isha will clear, and then the Met Office will put their focus onto this system. Again, we'll look at 50 to 60 miles per hour, maybe as much as 60 to 70. And you see the impact matrix, medium impact, low likelihood. So again, a very plausible chance here that this gets moved to an amber in the next day or so. So not only Isha coming in, but perhaps another pretty severe storm into Tuesday. As said, don't think it's going to be as widespread as intense, but still the possibility of severe impacts with this system as well. So if you do go over to the UKV and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, you can see the weather fronts associated with Isha moving in at the moment, giving some very heavy rain and some really squally bands of rain on the back edge, especially when those strongest winds start to come in around that 9-10 p.m. point. So it could get really wild out there at times. And you can see a bit of line convection developing as well. That could really spell danger, as we do see exceptionally heavy rain, very strong winds generally, but in a squall line, those winds can get exacerbated by 10-20 miles per hour. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a gust of 90 or 100 miles per hour in a squall feature even further southwards. Again, very locally, these squall features will occur, but could be very dangerous through this evening. Eventually, the heaviest rain will clear, but we will still see very strong winds into the early hours of the morning before things do start to subside on Monday, but still plenty of showers on this westerly flow. However, into Tuesday, we see the next system arrive. More heavy rain pushing in, And again, could be more rain warnings issued for this, and then again, very strong gusty winds as system does clear. Then as we head into the latter part of the week, still seeing lots of rain move in, but it doesn't look quite as disruptive in terms of wind gusts. Now, if you do look at those raw wind gusts over the next few hours, you can see as I'm recording this around 2 p.m, the winds are starting to really pick up in the Irish Sea and out into the North Atlantic. But it's really over the next few hours those winds turn exceptionally widespread, and we're looking at 70 or even 80 miles per hour across a large swathe around that 9 or 10 p.m. point. Now, you may be looking at this and saying, well, Scotland doesn't look too impacted here, especially northern and eastern parts. But just wait until the early hours of the morning. This is where we could see that narrow band of exceptionally strong winds. And look at that, we're widely looking at 70 to 80, as high as 90, and even locally could get higher than that. So first, looks like we're going to see a very strong band of winds widely through this the late evening, and then we can see this even stronger band around that 1, 2, 3 a.m. point for parts of northern Scotland. Eventually that does clear and winds do go lighter for tomorrow, but still fairly gusty, especially further westwards. And then as we progress into Tuesday, the winds pick up again, and we're looking at another wide spread swathe of 50 to 60, as high as 70 to 80, but you can see it's mainly aimed further northwards. Across England and Wales, we could still see a yellow warning, but nowhere near as strong as the winds we will see through this evening. Eventually that system clears, and as I said, still will be gusty through the rest of the week, but just nowhere near as impactful. If you look at the temperatures today, as I said, 10 to 12 degrees across southern areas, so very mild indeed. And then as we progress into Monday, slightly fresher, more down towards the 6 to 9 degree mark, but really still average to slightly above average. Into Tuesday, when that next system approaches, it will be chilly in the morning, then will turn much milder through the afternoon, potentially exceptionally mild, 13 or 14 degrees as possible, before it does go fresher again into Tuesday, but still milder further southwards, and into Thursday, again slightly milder. So you can see it is oscillating up and down, but generally is more on the side of above average through the next 5 days. Now, if you do head over to the arpège just to compare for those wind gusts, again, you can see through the rest of this afternoon and evening, exceptionally strong winds arriving, widely 60 plus up towards 70 or maybe even 80 miles per hour. You see even some very strong winds inland. And again, from the looks of the arpège, I'm surprised that amber warning doesn't extend towards London and East Anglia, because there really is no dip in the winds here. It still is 60 to maybe as high as 70 towards coastal areas. So a little bit surprised by that, but again, this is the arpège, there's only one run showing that. You can see further westwards, though, we are seeing that exceptionally strong spell of winds come inland, and perhaps getting as high as 90 miles per hour as that does sweep through, maybe even somewhere exposed 100 miles per hour, as we are seeing quite a narrow band of around 95 there. And again, if we were to look at this at higher resolution, I wouldn't be surprised to see winds slightly higher than that. Eventually, though, that does clear, and then as we progress into Tuesday, another spell of very strong winds arrives, but we're looking at, again, 60 to 70, maybe locally 80. So still very strong, but nowhere near as strong as Isha. Still could be named, still like to see yellow warnings, maybe even amber warnings, but as I said, nowhere near as impactful as what we're seeing this evening. If you do look at the DWD icon, again, through this evening, exceptionally strong winds arriving from the west. Again, widely, we're looking at 60 to 70, up towards 80 across many northern parts. And again, the risk of 100 miles per hour across the north of Northern Ireland into western Scotland, progressing eastwards through the early hours of the morning before eventually into rush hour tomorrow, things starting to clear and be a little bit better. And then into that system on Tuesday, again, could see exceptionally strong winds arriving through the evening, and again, 50, 60 widely, perhaps up to 70 or 80 in a few spots. So it is going to look very stormy over the next few days, potentially extremely disruptive through this evening, so do stay safe out there. As said, the strongest winds are luckily coming around that 9 p.m. until 3 a.m. point. That's a 6-hour interval. So hopefully not too many people out on the roads or anything like that. So hopefully that will mean impacts aren't as serious. But there is the risk that we wake up tomorrow morning and there are trees down and there is quite a lot of disruption, especially through the morning. So do take that into mind if you are travelling to work or travelling anywhere through tomorrow morning. There is quite a high chance that there is disruption up and down the country. Now, as I said, if we do go to the longer range, see what that has in store over the next few weeks. Again, we can see the lows moving in from the west storm Isha, and then this secondary storm potentially through Tuesday into Wednesday. And then we do start to see high pressure make a bit more of an influence, but at this stage, it's not doing anything too crazy. It continues to try and build in, but not having a lot of success because the tropospheric polar vortex towards southern Greenland is trying to hold those westerlies coming in off the Atlantic. Into the longer range, though, we do see the tropospheric polar vortex, the big lobe of purple, start to break up. And as soon as it starts to break up, look what the GFS does. It builds ridging to our north and pulls in a bitterly cold north to northeasterly winds. This would go very cold and potentially very wintry into early February here. Again, look at the upper air temperatures, widely down towards -5 and potentially even getting the -10 isotherm in if we did hold this on for slightly longer. Again, just shows you what could happen if that big lobe of tropospheric polar vortex does break apart, which the GFS shows here, but it is right in its extended range, so I wouldn't bank on it as of yet. Up to the day 10 point, which is where we can see the other models too, we aren't seeing any huge indications at this stage. If you look at the latest GM, again, westerly winds completely dominating over the next few days. High pressure continues to try to ridge in, maybe try to build towards Scandinavia, but towards day 10, not having a lot of hope. And it's all because this big lobe of purple is sitting over southern Greenland with exceptionally cold air within it. You see that from the temperature deviation and just piling in those westerly winds, fueling the jet stream and all the lows associated with it. So it could allow there to be continual stormy weather as we progress into the latter part of January. But we'll just have to keep an eye on it. Of course, as soon as the GFS broke that apart, it did go blocked and cold. But at this stage, up to day 10, no hints of it being broken apart as of yet. If you compare to the ECMWF, again, very strong westerlies continue to come in off the Atlantic. High pressure continuing to try and build in, but all the way to day 10, very similar to the GM, where we're not having too much success with breaking it apart. Perhaps signs it is starting to lose its organisation, those blues and purples breaking apart a little bit, but nothing too crazy at this stage. If we do finish by looking at the latest ensembles, GFS, you can see it very up and down over the next couple of weeks. Again, that's very symbolic of a westerly pattern. Some cold runs in the longer term, including that operational run, but no distinct, overwhelming outcome at this stage. So we'll just have to keep a close eye on it. But really, nothing to shout home about in the next couple of weeks, other than the risk of more storms, especially in the next few days, but perhaps even beyond that. If compared to the ECMWF, again, very similar, very much up and down, and the longer term, more above average than below average, but still no huge definitive signal, lots of up and down, and lots of discrepancy between the different ensemble members. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed. Make sure you stay safe throughout this evening and overnight. Of course, I'll have another update out tomorrow on the risk of that next system into Tuesday. And then, of course, I'll keep you updated if we do see any changes to the warnings. For example, if we did see a red warning issued, I'll probably get another video out for that. But for the time being, do stay safe out there over this evening. Can't stress enough the severity and the widespread nature of these winds. It is going to be disruptive and it's going to be up and down the country, not just in one localised area. Of course, we could see those strongest winds in Scotland, but elsewhere it could be very strong as well. So do stay safe out there in the coming hours, and I'll see you again for another video soon.